When you think about disaster response, you probably picture this. Well, this clear chain of command, right? A well-oiled machine just kicking into gear. But what if that very machine, the one we've been trusting for like a century, is just fundamentally broken? Okay, so let's get into it. We're going to explore why our emergency management playbook is seriously stuck in the past and, what we actually need to do about it.
And really, that's the big question here, isn't it? The threats we're up against today, I mean, we're talking about everything from cascading cyber attacks to crazy extreme weather. They look nothing like the ones our system was built to handle. So we're going to break down how we even got here, why it's failing so badly, and what a totally new approach might look like. All right, to really get a handle on the problem, we've got to go back, way back. See, our entire approach to crisis management, it was basically born during the Industrial Revolution. It was shaped by the logic of the assembly line, the factory floor and military-style hierarchies.
And what's pretty wild when you look at this timeline is how every single step just reinforces the same top-down idea. I mean, it starts way back in 1916, borrowing ideas from industry. Then bam, the Cold War comes along and just cements the whole thing. The Soviet nuclear test in '49, that leads directly to the 1950 Federal Civil Defense Act, which creates this perfect little pyramid. Federal policy flows down to the states, which then flows down to local authorities. Heck, even when FEMA was created in '79, it was really just putting a new label on the same old way of thinking.
So, what exactly is this command and control we keep talking about? Well, honestly, just think of an assembly line. It's that simple. Information about a problem goes up the chain of command, a big decision gets made at the very top, and then the orders flow all the way back down. And look, it's super efficient for problems that are predictable, mechanical things you can break down into little manageable parts. This quote right here, it just nails why that model worked for so long. During the Cold War, the main thing everyone was worried about was a nuclear attack. And yeah, it was terrifying, but it was also a relatively simple scenario to plan for. The enemy was known, the threat was understood, the response could be choreographed, just like a play. But, well, the world changed, big time. The kinds of disasters we're facing now, they're not simple or predictable anymore. And in this new, messy reality, that old rigid machine started to show some massive cracks. And then came 2005, Hurricane Katrina. I think for a lot of us, this was the moment that illusion of control was just shattered. The top-down command and control system was tragically, horribly unprepared for the sheer complexity of a real-world catastrophe. And here's the fundamental mismatch, the reason it all fell apart. The old system, it was built for threats that were predictable, linear, A leads to B leads to C. But modern crises, they're the exact opposite. They are totally unpredictable. They create these insane cascading failures that just ripple across all our systems. They're emergent, which is just a fancy way of saying they evolve in ways that literally no one can see coming. This whole industrial model is really built on three big flawed assumptions. First, it assumes we can predict things. It assumes we can map out a disaster ahead of time, but we can't. Second, it uses something called reductionism. It tries to break big problems into little pieces. The thing is, today's crises are all interconnected. A cyber attack hits the power grid, right? Well, that takes out the water supply, which then hits the hospitals. It's a domino effect. And third, it centralizes all the big decisions at the top, and this creates fatal delays. By the time an order finally trickles down from headquarters, the situation on the ground has completely changed. Okay. So if the old playbook is totally broken, what does the new one even look like? Well, the answer isn't about creating a better, stronger machine. No, it's about designing a completely different kind of system, one that's actually built for resilience in our super complex world. Just think about the kinds of threats we're looking at today and into the future. We're talking about those cascading failures I mentioned, cyber attacks that blur the line between the digital and physical worlds, rapid misinformation campaigns that spread like wildfire, super fragile global supply chains, and yeah, even new threats from emerging AI. None of these things fit into a neat little box that some top-down hierarchy can manage.
And this brings us to a really important new goal, adaptive resilience. Now, this isn't about being rigid and unbreakable like a concrete wall. It's actually the exact opposite. It's about being flexible. It's about having the capacity to learn, to adapt, and even to transform when a crisis hits. So how do we build this? Well, it really comes down to 4 core principles. Number 1, we have to empower the people who are actually on the ground. Give them the authority to make decisions. 2, We need to foster networks that share information side to side, not just up and down a ladder. Third, we have to stop trying to predict everything and instead design systems that can adapt to anything. And finally, and this one's huge, we build resilience from the community up. Because let's be real, they are always the true first responders.
So the fundamental shift in our thinking, the big idea we need to wrap our heads around, is a move away from this
And toward this, it's a move from that rigid pyramid of a hierarchy to the flexible, interconnected web of a network. It's a huge change.
This right here is the path forward. It's about letting go of this illusion that we can somehow control these massive, complex events. And instead, it's about embracing the much, much harder work of building genuine resilience.
And let's be clear, this isn't just about shuffling around an org chart. This quote gets right to the heart of the cultural shift we need. It means we have to rethink our most fundamental assumptions about who has authority, about what control means, and who we consider an expert. And maybe most importantly, it means we have to get comfortable with uncertainty instead of constantly trying to plan it away.
So at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is to completely change our focus. Instead of handing people these giant binders full of pre-made plans for every single scenario, we need to equip them with clear principles. Principles that allow for creative, on-the-fly, effective improvisation when the unexpected, and it will be unexpected, inevitably happens. Ultimately, it's not a debate anymore about if we need to change. That industrial age playbook, it's obsolete. The only real question left is, are we going to be able to adapt our thinking and our systems fast enough to keep up with the 21st century challenges that are already knocking on our door?